We will be talking today about something very, very special to you. The only guarantee of your freedom, that is your self-determination, your liberty, that is, not being dominated or encumbered by others, and your freedom of choice. We here in Arizona have been and still are under a direct frontal attack by the advocates of the National Popular Vote Compact. Let me assure any person from outside Arizona, your state will be next if you are not already under siege. We are not here to debate the positions of the advocates of the National Popular Vote Compact. The National Popular Vote, as well as the compact, is bad for Arizona, is bad for our country, and is unconstitutional. This issue requires a constitutional amendment, period. The case being made by the advocates of the National Popular Vote Compact that this issue is a state issue. Let me say that again, is a state issue, and therefore does not require congressional approval nor a constitutional amendment. The advocates clearly understand that they cannot reach their ultimate goal of terminating the Electoral College through the constitutional process as stipulated within Article 5 of the Supreme Law of the land, that being the Constitution. It is their position that they can simply bypass the Constitution through the use of an interstate compact agreement. This issue is not, as claimed by the National Popular Vote Compact advocates, about one person, one vote, or every vote equal, or the greatest fear-mongering of all, that your vote doesn't count. The concept that your vote does not count is nothing more than an emotionally charged argument designed to deceive you from their goal of terminating the Electoral College. The advocates of the National Popular Vote Compact claim that only through their compact will your vote be preserved. Nothing could be further from the truth. Under the National Popular Vote Compact, voters in as few as 5 states, and perhaps as few as 2 states, will determine the outcome of every presidential election. And the voice of the voters of every other state will be silenced. Only the Electoral College preserves the sovereignty of the state, and at the same time preserves the voices of millions of voters who live in what the elitist progressives derisively, i.e. pathetically, refer to as flyover country. The sovereignty of the state. Sovereignty, meaning each state is protected by its borders to act and function independently without outside influence from sister states. It is critical that each and every person understand that the principal core of this war, and it is a war, is your decision as to whether we maintain as a nation, our constitutional republic rule of law, or surrender it to a majority rule of law without constitutional protection. To strengthen that their position is the termination of the Electoral College, I quote from John B. Anderson, directly from their 1,100 pages of propaganda, quote, "Majority rule and political equality are fundamental tenets of democracy," end quote. Yes, majority does rule in a pure democracy, but we, as a nation, are not a pure democracy. We are a constitutional republic. By taking away the Electoral College, you take away the constitutional rule of law, and as stated, replace it with a majority rule of law. Remember, national popular vote means majority wins, and that means that majority rules, which means that you will be living under the majority rule of the rulers, not the Constitution. I cannot make it any more simple or direct as that. The greatest fear the Founding Fathers had about the election of the President of the United States were two words: democracy and factions. Democracy, signifying pure or direct democracy, the election of the President by national popular vote without the consensus of the sovereign state. Factions, signifying national special interest groups. The Founding Fathers understood that the combination of democracy and factions would lead our new United States of America directly down the path to tyranny and mobocracy. Why the Electoral College? The Founding Fathers believed that each sovereign state would have its own set of values, and each sovereign state should have its own voice. Do you believe that those of us living in Arizona has the same set of values as California or New York or Illinois? I think not. Yet, this is the path the National Popular Vote Compact wants to take you. The National Popular Vote Compact wants to dictate that the majority of the voters from a small handful of states would determine the national popular vote winner. This is why the Founding Fathers feared democracy. This is why the Founding Fathers believed in a key principle of the Constitution: federalism and sovereignty of the state. It is fair to conclude that our nation was born as a union of states, equal in power, dignity, and authority. Indeed, the constitutional equality of the states is essential to the harmonious operation upon which the Republic was organized. The fundamental principle of equal sovereignty of the state under constitutional rule of law is a guiding principle which must not be denied. Yet, this is exactly what the advocates are attempting to terminate through the concept of a national popular vote compact. Factions. The fear of factions. In summary of James Madison's Federalist 49, one can conclude that Madison believed that individuals motivated by self-interest could well become the main threat to a free government through the creation of its own factions, the control of which is of vital importance. Again, in summary, one could conclude that in Madison's search for that ideal free government, he only need look for a government in which factions are controlled, with control being the operative word. Madison concluded that the fear of factions both within the federal government and within the population was a threat to our republic. Our concern today is the control of factions within the population regarding the election of the President and Vice President of the United States. The only safeguard we have today in controlling factions is the border of our sovereign states. It is the border of our sovereign states that denies special interest groups from banding together under the concept of a national popular vote and having the power and control to determine the outcome of a presidential election. The National Popular Vote Compact is in direct defiance of the protection of the sovereign state. Under the National Popular Vote Compact, there would no longer be states with borders. There would no longer be states with values. There would only be the power of factions banding together to control the outcome of an election. Under the National Popular Vote Compact, the votes of California and New York and Illinois would well overwhelm the values and decisions by the voters of non-compact states, which would provide overwhelming powers to the federal government. Should you doubt this, just recall the 8 years under the past administration when the constitutional rule of law was tossed out the window. This is exactly why the Electoral College must be protected at all costs. To protect the sovereignty of the state, to deny factions the ability to band together without being controlled by state borders. Our electors, with the constitutional principle of the sovereign state, we must ask ourselves the question, who do the electors of each sovereign state belong to? To that sovereign state and its voters? Or as the advocates of the National Popular Vote Compact want you to believe, not to the voters of that state, but to the wishes of the factions of California, New York, and Illinois. This is the driving issue behind the National Popular Vote Compact. The simple constitutional truth is, our electors belong to us, the citizens of each and every sovereign state. The United States Constitution, as well as state constitutions, do not allow our electors to cast their vote based on the wishes of sister states. Whatever method used to choose state electors, states do not have the moral, much less legal right to create a statute, i.e. law, attempting to reassign our electors' votes that potentially go against the wishes of the majority of that state's choice. Why the need for an unconstitutional use of an interstate compact? Since 1892, we have had 2 presidential elections where the national popular vote winner did not win the required constitutional 270 electoral votes to win the presidency. In both cases, Bush versus Gore and Trump versus Clinton, let's be honest, in that the progressive Democrats had a terrible candidate and, more importantly, both delivered terrible messaging. Do any of you believe that we would be here today if the situation had been reversed? I think not. The progressive Democrats would be screaming, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the Electoral College, as a component of the Constitution, is therefore the supreme law of the land. Yet, because of these 2 elections, here we are in an all-out war to retain our constitutional republic. Under the National Popular Vote Compact concept, the Constitution would no longer be the supreme law of the land in its originalism or textualism. The progressive Democrats are using the election of 2000 and 2016 as a wedge to undo the supreme constitutional law and replace it with a majoritarian supreme rule of law. It is their objective to totally dismantle our United States Constitution and replace it with a new Constitution that would allow for majority rule, but not with constitutional protection for all citizens. Small states would no longer be relevant. State values would no longer be relevant. The individual would no longer be relevant. Only the common good for the majority would matter. When they talk about majority rule, they mean just that. The majority will rule, not the Constitution. The National Popular Vote Compact puts the power of government into the control of the majority without protecting the rights of the minority. We would no longer have a constitutional majority. We would have a numerical majority. under a national popular vote compact, would the president-elect take an oath to the Constitution, while his real true allegiance would be to that majority who carried the election, even if that majority had a plurality of only, let's say, 35%, which would be very possible. Under the national popular vote concept, there is no numerical threshold for election. Remember, their position is the national popular vote winner is just that, the winner. The 65% would now be the minority. Again, we saw constant evidence of this throughout the 8 years of the past administration, as they played by their rules, not the constitutional rules. And this is important. The only savior our constitutional republic had when we were under the past administration's rule of law was the Constitution itself, the very instrument the National Popular Vote Compact is attempting to shred. Another myth. The opponents of the Electoral College argue that we do not elect our president democratically. That argument is totally false. Actually, we have 51 democratic elections in 50 sovereign states plus the District of Columbia. They just do not agree as to how popular votes be counted by the wishes and values of each sovereign state or by the wishes of special interest groups. So, the question is, what are you voting for or against? This is critical. You are not voting for the concept of a national popular vote. Rather, they are asking you to vote to have the state join into an interstate compact where, along with the collusion of agenda-driven factions, the Electoral College winner will be determined with no threshold of plurality. As stated earlier, under the National Popular Vote Compact system, as few as 35% of the voters could elect the next president of the United States. And remember, the Electoral College threshold of 270 electoral votes is thrown out the window as it is predetermined through the collusion of the interstate compact that those 270 electoral votes would go to the national popular vote winner regardless of plurality. That's what you are voting for or against. Keep in mind that the framers not only rejected the direct popular vote of the president, but, and this is important, the founders left it to the state legislatures, not to the citizens, to determine how electors were to be selected. Not awarded, but selected. They could be appointed, as we do in Arizona, or they could be elected. One last point on this subject. Do citizens within a given state have the right to vote away another citizen's rights, as is being attempted in Arizona through the use of a citizens' initiative referendum. As Ayn Rand stated, individual rights are not subject to a majority vote. A majority has no right to vote away the rights of the minority. The political functions of rights is to protect the minority from oppression by majorities. And the smallest minority on earth is the individual. So, I ask again, does the majority have the right to vote away the rights of the minority? Understanding what you are voting for, or better yet, against, in this Citizens Initiative referendum. 1. If you want to retain Arizona or any state as a sovereign state, vote no. If you want your vote to count, vote no. If you want our Constitution to remain the supreme law of the land, vote no. If you want to retain your individual liberties and freedoms and ability to make free choices under the constitutional rule of law, vote no. If you want the citizens of California and New York and Illinois running Arizona, vote yes. What will come next? Which law will our state legislatures decide to follow? A national special agenda wish, or the constitutional rights of the citizens? And again, they, state legislatures, will argue that they have the plenary power to create a statute to satisfy any special interest group they wish to support. As a voting citizen, that's your call. You have the ability to deliver the message. The good news. Here's the good news. We have been witness to a high-minded constitutional act that has taken place unbroken every 4 years from the beginning of the Republic. One day, every 4 years, we, as American citizens, go to the polls to elect electors, to who, in turn, expressing the wishes of the sovereign state, cast their vote for President and Vice President of the United States of America. This one day should remind us of why we, Americans, are a constitutional people, and why the Electoral College is one of the major linchpins of our constitutional system to be protected at all costs. Our electoral votes are cast not for the wishes of California or New York or Illinois, but for the citizens within each sovereign state. The National Popular Vote Compact takes your vote away from you. It silences your voice. Your vote will not count. State legislatures do not have the authority to reassign the wishes of the electorates, i.e. voters, in having our electors cast their vote based on election results in other states and then move those electors' votes across state borders. This is exactly what the National Popular Vote Compact is designed to accomplish. And this is exactly what the Constitution was designed to deny. Understand that you are not voting to have Arizona or any state simply join the National Popular Vote Compact. Within Arizona, you are voting to pass the failed 2016 statute that was created by the Arizona State Legislature, which took away your voting wishes as a sovereign state. This is unconstitutional. If you want the majority rulers to control your life, that's your call. As a minority, and that's what you will be, you will hear, we won, you lost, you have nothing to say about anything. Elections have consequences. Again, understand that under the concept of the National Popular Vote Compact, there is no threshold on being elected President of the United States. Pure and simple, majority wins, and the plurality could well be at a threshold of 30% to 35%. There is no threshold relating to the intent of the Electoral College, as that will be predetermined through the National Popular Vote Compact, and the very strong possibility that one or two states' wishes will be overturned is unconstitutional. One last subject. Fraud. Real or myth? We do need to touch on this subject. The advocates claim that the National Popular Vote Compact would reduce fraud. I doubt that anyone buys into this scenario. Please listen carefully. Cheaters cannot create electoral college votes. Cheaters can create millions of national popular votes. This protection against cheaters is another safeguard provided by the Electoral College, a safeguard that the National Popular Vote Compact takes away. In closing, regarding fraud, do any of you believe that one state should trust another state to fight fraud to the same degree? I think not. Additionally, varying state election laws guarantee that the unequal treatment of voters will surely be litigated under the Equal Protection Clause. Either we follow the constitutional rule of law or we follow the rule of the rulers. It is important to understand that the Electoral College is an intricate part of the Constitution and is therefore the supreme law of the land, and therefore any change to the Constitution must be accomplished through the prescribed method of amendment, and that is through Article 5. As Hamilton inferred in Federalist 85, the amending process is designed to be challenging to the people of each sovereign state. It was not designed as a simple, willy-nilly process. It was designed for the preservation of the freedom and the individual. Let me double down. Should our great constitutional republic ever be overcome by majority rule, you will become a minority, and you will live under the rule of the rulers with no constitutional protection. It's your call. Retain the constitutional republic and live under the rule of constitutional law, which has served our great exceptional country for 231 years, or surrender your individual freedoms, liberties, and choice, and opt to live under the rule of the rulers, the majority. We won, you lost, you have nothing to say. Personally, I choose freedom. Do not support the National Popular Vote Compact. Do not support the Citizens Initiative. Protect your freedoms. Protect your liberties. Protect your freedom of choice. Vote no on the National Popular Vote Compact.